Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to join us to learn about the Donut and Parlay's partnership. In today's webinar, you'll learn about the why and how Parlay and the Donut will be working together to bring you discussions on current events. So without further ado, we can go over today's agenda. So we'll start off with introductions. Today we're joined by our two guests. We've got Bobby, who is the CEO and founder of Parlay, and joining him is Peter Nowak, the founder and CEO of The Donut. So I'm going to have some questions for them so we can learn a bit more about what to expect from this new daily news collection. We'll learn a bit about how it works. Perhaps we'll learn some tips for how to facilitate these sort of discussions about the ideas and events shaping our world in class. And then we will wrap up with a Q&A at the end. If you do, however, have any questions throughout, please feel free to leave them in the chat as well, and someone from our team can help out. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Bobby. Could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, cool. Well, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Cynthia. So yeah, I'm Bobby. I'm the founder and CEO of Parlay. Been working on this project now for 5 years, but I've been thinking about it for over 10. And the goal of Parlay, it pretty simply is to help teachers facilitate what we call meaningful, measurable, and inclusive discussions in the classroom. We believe that we're moving into a world where students are meant to be, driving the learning because information and knowledge is increasingly abundant. And if we move to a world where students are asking questions and building on each other's ideas and driving dialogue, whether it's written dialogue or verbal dialogue, then we'll prepare them to be good citizens. We'll prepare them to be good listeners, and we'll prepare them with the skills they need to thrive in an increasingly automated and complex and chaotic world. And so what we're trying to do, in short, is to take some of the ancient wisdom of discussions and to bring them into the modern classroom with a combination of technology, professional development, and pedagogy, and then of course content, which really brings us here today for this presentation. So yeah, I'll leave it at that and let Peter introduce himself as well.
Oh, that was well done. That was a lot more eloquent probably than I will be. But I'm Peter Nowak, founder, CEO of The Donut. I've been working on this for almost 2 years now. Our actual 2-year anniversary is on June 4th. So it's coming up here. And a lot of where this stemmed from, and I'll tell a little bit of a personal story here and kind of the motivation behind The Donut for me. Ever since I was young, I've been a self-proclaimed newsophile, just like straight obsessed with the news and just knowing what's going on and being able to distill complex things into very simple terms, relatable terms. And since I was young, like 5 or so years old, I wanted to be like my dad. And my dad read the news every single morning at the dinner table, similar to a lot of what we're probably hearing in the background now. But with that being said, every morning was like a spectacle. So my dad had trained our dog, it was a yellow lab at the time, to go get the paper every morning. And my parents' house is sitting in Plymouth, Michigan, and has this long kind of straight drive. So I loved the spectacle, getting up early, being able to hang out with my dad, and then seeing the dog get so excited, just tail wagging, kind of jumping up and down by the front door, bolting out after we opened the door, grabbing the paper in its mouth, running back up, just so happy. And then I'd sit at the table with my dad. My dad would read all of the complex world issues, and me at 5 years old, I'd be reading just the comics. And I'd be having the greatest time. And then I would graduate from the comics into sports and business, technology, and kind of I was reading everything cover to cover since I was like 10 or 11 or so years old. And this was back in the days of actual print newspapers. So I was holding this at the dinner table or outside or wherever. So I kind of saw the whole advent and got an inside look at the whole advent of the proliferation of online media and advertising, and Facebook and Google coming around and usurping all of the advertising revenue from the news publications. And then the news publications trying to adapt, needing to adapt just to stay alive, and turning into a lot of sensationalism, clickbait, things I wasn't really into, just showing one side of an argument instead of both, things of that nature. And I just got to the point like around 2016 or so where I was just fed up. I was so frustrated. Nobody's talking to each other. I was taking so much time to figure out what in the world is actually going on, around me. And I felt something just had to change. And that's where the donut came from. And the mission of the donut is to positively transform conversation and education by delivering impartial, trustworthy information that's fun and easy to consume. So something just very straight down the middle, very fun, very easy, and surfacing the good things that happen in the world. Because a lot of times when you read through the news, it's tough not to have this impending feeling of doom. It's like, man, the world's ending, sucks, everything's terrible. But then if you like step back and you look holistically at everything going on, there's amazing people in the world, incredible people. I have the privilege to chat and hang out with them every single day. And there's people in the world that I've never met, strangers, that are incredible individuals doing amazing things. And in coalition with telling just straight down the middle factual news with a little bit of fun, we want to surface those stories as well. And in short, which is ironic because I've just kind of prattled on a little bit, we want to be the antithesis of everything that I do not like about the news. And that's the one-sidedism, that's misinformation, taking things out of context, delivering this ever impending feeling of doom, and just build something that connects people instead of divides them.
Absolutely, yeah. And we have Katie in the chat who mentioned that she's just recently subscribed and she's really excited about it. Katie, I'm with you. I have been following along with the donut for months now, and I can attest to it being a really great positive news source. I'd like to dive a little bit more into the ingredients, I like how you put that, for how you construct your donut newsletter. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I'll just kind of walk y'all through how we put the newsletter together every day. So we have a team of around 5 people right now, and positive and futuristic writers as well. And the very first thing, just the start of the day, you know, wake up, crusties out of your eyes, all that jazz. We have a system that surfaces, that scours 100+ publications and a whole bunch of social media sources, and then just extracts and surfaces, I don't know, 50 to 75 or so of just the most influential and discussed topics of the day. We combine that with a lot of our editorial perusal, I guess, which just means like reading a whole bunch of news sources that we trust and talking to people that we know. And then from there, the day starts with an all hands meeting. And at this all hands meeting, we get all of these topics out on the table and we have a discussion. And the content team ranges from people who are ultra progressive to ultra conservative. And we have these intense, rational, civil, and like logical, it's amazing, these logical discussions to ensure there's enough of a topic consensus to move forward with what actually makes it into the donut. And then once those topics are selected, the process is our journalists kind of get assigned stories based on their previous expertise or their area of interest, and also who has contacts kind of in that industry or people they can talk to get more of an insider's, I guess, informed perspective. So once we decide on all of the topics, we assign the stories. Journalists go write their respective stories. After that, we'll recongregate together and do kind of like a group fact check and discussion. There's a lot of issues with news organizations just in general is most of the time only 2 people are seeing a story, and it's the writer and it's the editor, where we kind of hedge our bets in terms of putting it through the ringer a little bit more as we get more eyes on it and we get all perspectives on it. So if it makes it through that gauntlet there, it's in our mind, it's going to be something that probably is as close to accurate as you're going to get in today's world. So after we go through that process, we fact check a little bit more. So we have 2 research assistants who go through every single fact in the newsletter, make sure that it's good, it's clean, it's objectively verifiable. And then after that, and this is where there's a little bit of shoring up that we need to do. This is not in the dose of discussion. This is in everything else in breaking news. But I'm not sure that any news organization has a great process for breaking news these days. It's something that we're working on. But I personally wake up every single morning and make sure that nothing crazy important has broken overnight that warrants inclusion in the newsletter. So in a nutshell, that's the process we go through. We extract, aggregate the topics, discuss, figure out what goes in there, disperse, write them, put them through the ringer, and then it makes it to publication.
Awesome. That's really interesting to hear that discussion is at the core of this process. You have everything kind of out on the table. That makes a lot of sense.
People are brilliant, and the more perspectives and more unique individuals that get to see something, like, to me, that's only a positive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I'd love to jump a little bit more into the partnership now. So with that said, Bobby, would you be able to tell us from your perspective, what did you think when you first learned about the donut, and why did you want to start this partnership?
Yeah, okay, awesome. Happy to share. Before I do though, I'm going to go here. Everyone can go to thedonut.co and dose of news useful today and sign up. Obviously, it was said in the chat that it's free. It's a great thing every morning to have in your inbox above and beyond the collections that we're creating for Parlay. So just wanted to give that plug, obviously. And with that, the reason why I first found out about the donut, actually, Cynthia, through you. And you found out about it through Amanda Cardenas, who's a teacher in the Parlay community who uses Parlay very actively and sort of like a big and growing voice in education and ed tech more generally. She introduced it to us. We started, we subscribed to the newsletter. We started following it and learned all about it on the website, and it just became clear that at the level of values we're very aligned, at the level of the importance of dialogue, the importance of getting all of the potential perspectives around the table, and especially when it comes to all the shades of gray in human affairs, having all those perspectives challenge one another and build on and question each other. That's how you get to truth, or something that is as close to truth as possible in a very messy world. So we believe that, obviously, fundamentally at our core at Parlay, and we started learning more about the donut. Loved their brand, loved how they were going about it. Thought it was so it was like an interesting and creative and fun way and positive way to approach what is a very serious issue. And even sometimes I think Parlay, like our branding and how we approach things, is very, very deep and philosophical, and oftentimes a little too on the nose. And I loved that what the donut was doing was doing, living many of the same values, but doing it in a way that was very fun and cheeky. And so we thought, obviously we have the Parlay universe, and there'd be a great opportunity for us to partner. So we reached out to PJ, and then we had a couple conversations, and everyone was laughing that we were the brothers from another mother, and we hit it off. We scheduled a 20-minute chat or whatever, and ended up talking for well over an hour. So yeah, we just kind of got started from there. I don't know if PJ, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of alignment, it's kind of amazing how well I think we fit together and complement each other. As y'all have incredible technology, and then this discussion platform that fosters the ability for people to do what I would love out of our content, especially our dose of discussion, which is have those conversations about the nuance, about the gray areas, as you put it. Because in today's kind of like, I don't even know, is Twitter 240 characters now, or is it still 140? Whatever it is. In today's kind of like quippy world, everything's boiled down to a very short sentence, or something that doesn't quite capture nuance or context, and life is lived in the gray areas. And that's what I loved, especially about Parlay in education and classrooms, because to me, the next generation is the generation that has the power and ability to change the world. And I've spoken to a few classrooms, and I must say, and I have a whole ton of teacher members in my family, and my respect for teachers is astronomical. Like the job they all do is unbelievable. But what I'm driving at is I am so excited about the future because of what I've seen from the young kids in classrooms, in terms of being able to communicate with each other, in terms of understanding things. We're all the same, and everybody should be treated the same. And kind of having this ownership of, we want to build the world that we're proud of. And I'm really excited about the future, especially with our future partnership, or our partnership.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, so I'd love to dive a little bit more into how this collection looks like and how it's going to work. So I would love to know what, maybe from Bobby, we could start. What can we expect from this collection? Who is it for? And how can we use it?
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so you guys can see this okay, Cynthia?
You can.
All right. Basically, 3 times per week, the Parlay team is going to be creating a discussion topic in the Parlay universe in a collection called the Donut Daily News Collection. And in each of those discussion topics, we will have content that comes directly from the Donut's newsletter. So every day, the Donut writes a newsletter, and it comes in email form, and they also post it on their website. It's really easy to get to. And one of the things they always put in the email, or in the email or in the newsletter, is what they call the dose of discussion. So we saw this and we thought, wow, this is just perfect, obviously. And in this case, the topic is, this is today's, as cryptocurrency and regulation, what's the move? And so there's a detailed sort of analysis of everything that's going on in the world of cryptocurrency and regulation. So you see China's obviously a part of this. There are Gallup polls and all these hyperlinks from all the data that they, and all the research that they've done. And then they do this thing that, a lot of people really like, is sprinkles from the left and sprinkles from the right. So there's like a summary and background information on the issue. And then there's, what Democrats and or left-leaning traditionally publications are talking about. And then, the same on the right, so to speak. And the Donut does an excellent job of summarizing all these things and then linking the actual articles where those exist. So this is the content. It's only one part of a much bigger newsletter that has many, many different awesome sections. But this is the content that we will be using every day as the content in multimedia, that sort of foundational knowledge piece of the Parlay discussions. Peter, do you want to add anything to, the dose of discussion, how you guys think about it? What's the goal behind it?
Yeah, for sure. And this is why I say it just complements each other so well, is this section right here, the dose of discussion, is meant to provide enough context and background so you can read it really quickly, less than a minute, and have a good enough understanding to grasp the nuance and complexity of the arguments. And that's a lot of what we do internally, is a lot of the discussions around these particular topics drives a lot of what goes in the actual newsletter.
Awesome. Cool. So what we do is we start with the daily dose of discussion. And then, of course, at Parlay, we have the framework that we use for creating discussion topics. And that framework is this template, which will have the learning goals. So what are the topics or essential questions that we're going to be exploring in this discussion? Are there any skills or specific curriculum expectations we want to cover? And then how does this topic connect to students' lives? So we would then, based on content from the daily dose of discussion, build learning goals. And then obviously in the content and multimedia section, we copy and paste their content from the daily dose of discussion. And then on the Parlay side, we create the discussion questions. So we go through, we read the resources and the materials, and we familiarize ourselves with the discussion. And then we create discussion questions for the students to answer. And then, of course, we create the peer feedback instructions. So we put it all into this template. And when we do, basically, we would then, come up with a nice picture, and then we would put it into the donut collection, which looks like this. So you'll see on each one of them. So we have a summary of, what the donut is. And then we have all of the different discussion topics that we've created recently. So we've been doing it just since the beginning of May. And so there's, I don't know how many topics are here, 12 now. And so, for example, this was one from yesterday, which is schools reopening in the fall. So if I click on this, you'll see that there are the learning goals, very simple, very straightforward. And then there's the content and multimedia, which is the topic, or the daily dose of discussion from the Donut team. And so this was all that information that the students might need to read, as well as a few links for sprinkles from the right and sprinkles from the left. And then we have discussion questions. And of course, with Parlay, discussion questions are often higher order. They encourage students to reflect on their own feelings, their own personal experience, to analyze, to integrate, their existing knowledge, to propose opinions or solutions, or to make evaluations. All the ways that Parlay likes to create discussion topics that, discussion questions that lead to a broad range of perspectives and open up the conversation for as much a rich dialogue and back and forth as possible. So in this case, how do you feel about, reopening schools? What was one positive takeaway from online learning for you as a student? And something just a little higher level. What do you think the school system will look like in 5 to 10 years from now? What impact do you think online learning has had on the education system? To really just give kids the opportunity to think almost very metacognitively about their own experience and what that means for the future of education, based on the things that they will have read about and learned here. So yeah, this is just an example of one of the discussion topics. And then of course there's peer feedback instructions as well. And then of course, as a Parlay teacher, you can change this. So this is really meant, most of these topics are going to be for high school students, just in terms of the level that the language and the stories that the donut is choosing. They're more for students at the high school level. With that said, as is always the case with Parlay, teachers can edit these discussion topics. So if I press use this topic in my classroom, I'm going to have to log in. If I press use this topic in my classroom, then let's say my social studies class, then I create the roundtable, and of course it takes it from the Parlay universe and it adds it into my Parlay classroom. So you can see it takes the title and everything, and then I can go and edit it as a teacher. And so if you want to come in and maybe pare this down a little bit, maybe only use one or two of the links or resources, and maybe change some of the questions to make things a little bit simpler depending on the grade level. Of course, as always, you have full and complete creative freedom to do that as a teacher. So they are, like I said, at the high school level mostly, but you can make any adjustments that you want, add your own resources, take some away, change some of the language. So you have the freedom as the teacher to do that. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then also, if you go to the Parlay universe, just in general, you'll see that the Donut Daily News collection is now the second collection, or the third collection that will be on your list. And then you can click here and press see collection, and that's an easy way to get to it.
I'm going to take it so personally if you change the dose of discussion content. I'm kidding, obviously.
That's good. Yeah, so that's how it works. And then obviously we're always looking for feedback. So as you go through this, if the discussion questions, if you wanted them to be improved in any way, or you have a suggestion for how we can make this process better, how we can make our partnership with the donut better, we are always open to constructive feedback. So you know where to find us on that front.
I think you're muted, Cynthia.
Did we lose Cynthia?
Yeah, I think she's muted.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I was typing before. Thank you for that reminder. I was going to say that a lot of these topics, while they're very interesting, might be a little bit challenging for students to dive into. And while there's a really great background framework in the actual dose of discussion prompt, I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for a teacher who might be hesitant or need some advice for how to facilitate these types of difficult discussions.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the short answer is yes. With some of the topics, we understand that the issues can be very difficult and very contentious, and obviously there's a lot. These are very complex, real world issues, and bringing those into the classroom can sometimes be a challenging thing. So an example might be the Israel-Palestine update that we did last week. Obviously, this is a very sensitive and difficult issue, and there's many different perspectives on this, and of course we're talking about human lives, and a lot of other very sensitive, potentially traumatic things for kids. And so what we do in that case is we actually have sort of a disclaimer for teachers, which describes how we create these topics, and it gives some background on how we approach difficult discussion topics. And this is not only true for the donut collection, but it's true for Parlay's discussion topics more generally. And then we also have strategies for facilitating difficult discussion topics. So this is the one that I think answers your question, Cynthia. So what we have here is basically an article that goes through 7 different strategies for approaching, difficult, complex, nuanced discussions with your students. So one would be like preface the discussion with some, language about making sure that we create a safe space and that we, are respectful of one another, etc. And that, so you can, feel free to read through those. I'm not going to bore everyone and read them now. Of course, the online roundtable has secret identities. There's a student guide for live roundtables that we've created, which really sort of helps establish a cadence and create some expectations around what it means to be a student, participating in a discussion, certainly one about difficult issues. Give students the opportunity to recuse themselves, and how that can be done in both online and live roundtables. Use unbiased questions and resources. So this is, again, links back to our framework. So shows how we think about it. Have the conversation with your colleagues first. Is this something you think we should be talking about? Maybe how could I maybe augment this discussion topic or the questions to make sure that it, meets the needs of my, my specific students. And then, of course, as with the students, reflect as a group and highlight and champion what it means to be, a positive and constructive member of a dialogue about different difficult discussion topics. So this can be found, like I said, in the universe, but you can also go to the Parlay Help Center. So if I go to Parlay right now, you'll be able to always find the Parlay Help Center. So if you're inside of a classroom, for example, you can click on this little question mark up here. And then if you go to Getting Started, you'll see Navigating Difficult Discussion Topics is right here as well. So that's an easy way to get to that.
Wonderful. Now, and Peter, I'm still stuck in loving the information you mentioned about your team, again, having those open discussions about these events. So I'm wondering if potentially you had any tips or suggestions for what your team does or has established in terms of the practices and norms when having these difficult discussions.
Yeah, that number one on the list that Bobby shared has been the biggest thing, is just prefacing the discussion. And one thing I will add to that we've seen a lot of success with, because I'd be lying to y'all if I said all of our discussions were very nice, right? And, not ever heated or contentious. But one thing that's seemed to help a lot of individuals, and myself included, is driving home the point that an individual is not their ideas, and having the ability to separate the person from the idea. And what that does a lot to our team is it introduces more of an open mind to new things. So that would be the only thing that I really have to add, because that's really comprehensive and good. But for us, prefacing the discussion has been the most important aspect of that.
Mm-hmm. That's great. We've got a question from Katie in the chat for you, Peter. She asks, how does the donut decide what story will be the dose for the day? How does this match up with other media's front page per se?
That's a great question. So a lot of times it has to do with a recent news event that can tie into a kind of broader discussion. So for instance, the school reopening that Bobby showed, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio gave an interview with MSNBC on Monday, the day before, or the actual day that we wrote the dose of discussion, because we write it the night before it's published first thing in the morning. So that very day, de Blasio gave an interview with MSNBC where he made the announcement that New York City schools are going to fully reopen in person in the fall with no remote options. So on days like that, it's very cut and dry, and knowing our audience and knowing that we're kind of gearing towards a younger group, like the next generation, 34 and younger, that also kind of drives our topic choice, because our team is made up of individuals of kind of all age groups and all different backgrounds. But there are things that the younger generation is a little more interested in than the older generations, I will say. So a lot of that also drives it. And then the third thing, and this was the most important thing, is the feedback and kind of discussion that's fostered with our team. And a lot of the time, and I'm amazed by this still, and like I said, I've been doing this almost 2 years. I am amazed to this day how many times we land on a topic consensus among people who disagree so vehemently on political positions.
Wow, that's very powerful. And similarly, Bobby, how does the team go about selecting the topics for the 3 times a week for the collection?
Yeah, well, they gave us 5 and we picked 3 in short. But on our end, it's a very similar calculus. We will typically, let's say Monday morning or Sunday night late when we get the original, the original sort of the first draft, we ask ourselves, like, is this something that we think matters to teachers and students, and particularly students? Is this something that students, let's say in high school, usually are ready to have this conversation? And if they're not necessarily ready for this conversation, do we believe that the resources provided are going to give a comprehensive sort of get them up to speed quickly? The answer is usually yes, of course. So that's the first thing, is making sure that it's something that's appropriate, as well as something that they're highly likely to like actually take interest in. So yeah, those would be the 2 sort of main things. And then the third one would be, is there a meaningful question for us to ask here? And again, that's almost always yes, but can we get to the point where what is being discussed here, there's a really great question to be asked that will open up a space for personal reflection, for potentially some debate or some constructive disagreement, and these kinds of discussions. So each of us on the team, Cynthia, of course, you do one, I do one, and Annalisa does one every week, and we sort of go through, and each of us picks. And if we think maybe today's not the right one, we'll hold out for tomorrow, and bit of a slot machine, because we never know what tomorrow's going to bring, which is kind of fun, actually. But yeah,
You thought we'll hit a dopamine?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I would definitely encourage you to check out, of course, subscribe to the newsletter and see what the dose of discussion is. And if you're interested in running it, it's quite easy, seeing that we do it every week, to put it right into an online roundtable. And if you ever needed assistance with developing questions, you've got the Parlay team. We're here to help. All right. I have one final question, and then we can open it up for a Q&A, if that's good with you. I'm wondering if you had like one last bit of advice in terms of like what sort of discussion you would hope would come from this sort of collection. What type of discussions would you hope?
It's a good question. Discussions that could change the world, I would say, in a short sentence.
Mm-hmm. Bobby?
Yeah, man, it's big shoes to fill there. I would say that discussions that teach students about the complexity of the world through the eyes of their classmates, in some sense. Every one of us, from wherever we are, whatever our background, whatever our socioeconomic status, whatever our life experiences, all of these things, our biology, like all of these things shape who we are and what we believe and how we see the world, and cultural backgrounds, everything, all of it. And if you take a complicated topic and you put kids around a table and you encourage them to speak openly and freely and constructively about this, you're going to teach them the importance of listening and the importance of integrating different worldviews. And you're going to give some kids the confidence to actually finally speak and share, what is true to them and what is meaningful to them. And, if teachers do that on a regular basis, which they of course do in their classroom, certainly the teachers who are here, then I think you're moving towards helping those kids be ready for the world.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I was just joking. I actually have one more question for Peter, if that's okay.
Hit me with it.
Okay, it's a bit of a Canadian pop quiz question for you.
Oh boy, okay.
Yeah, okay. So, well, seeing that you're the CEO and founder of a company called The Donut, I'm wondering, Peter, if you could tell us what the Canadian timbit is.
Oh, like the Tim Hortons?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I love Tim Hortons. So
Great.
I did an internship my senior year at Michigan State, and so I went to school. And every single morning, literally every single morning, I would stop. I would get Timbits. I would get a Tim Hortons bagel, bacon, and egg and cheese sandwich, and a Tim Hortons coffee without fail every single day. And I think it was like 5:01, and I knew that down to the penny, so I'd always have my change ready.
Well, this partnership is perfect. The Timbit is. That's awesome. Just a little fun there. But now we're free to take questions if anybody has them. You could feel free to either unmute yourself and ask, or in the chat's a great way. If anyone is planning on heading out early or now, we will be sending out the recording, and we do have a quick webinar feedback form if you wouldn't mind filling out. It'll just take a couple of minutes and it's done anonymously. Thank you, Annalisa. She just put it in the chat there. So that would be much appreciated. We've got Dora asking, how do you plan to merge membership late payments in the future? Regarding Parlay being not free. So right now Parlay has the free trial option with the 12 roundtables. So I'm not sure, Bobby, did you have anything you wanted to add regarding payments in the future?
Yeah, so the Parlay universe is always open and free for everyone. And so even if you don't have a Parlay subscription to be able to use the actual discussion topic in a Parlay online roundtable, you can use the topic. So we're creating these discussion topics from the donut, for example, and those will always be free. So if you want to take that and use it in Google Classroom, for example, you can do that. Or if you want to use that as a foundation for a dialogue that you just have with your students in person that doesn't involve Parlay or any technology, then you can do that as well. So the content that we create in partnership with the donut will always be free and open for everyone, irrespective of whether or not they have a individual or a school license. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have teacher friends of mine who aren't Parlay subscribed yet, but they love the universe. They just entire units are taken from there. So happy to help. From Daniel, we have for you, Peter, what separates the Donut newsletter from other similar sites like allsides.com?
Oh, that's a good question. So allsides.com is a news aggregator. So they don't actually create any content on their own. What they do is they take content from other news publications and congregate it in a centralized place. I know they do a newsletter weekly that is similar to the Dose of Discussion, but the context and background isn't quite as comprehensive. So I would say that's also that is a big difference between us and news aggregators like in All Sides. What I would toss in as well is the positivity aspect. So in every single newsletter, and we're launching additional newsletters as well, and in those, every single day and every single piece of content that we send out, every single newsletter that we send out does include a story about an ordinary person doing something incredible. We call it our daily dose of positive. So the positivity and then more comprehensive context and background, I would say, is probably the biggest difference.
Thank you, Peter.
There you go, Daniel. Thank you.
From Katie, Peter, would you ever interact with students to discuss, explain your collaborative process, or students are struggling to start the year, or they start the year struggling with what are the discussions worthy of engaging in this level of discussion?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, please, and if any teachers listening to want to set up something, please just email me. It's Peter, Peter, at mydonut, mydonut.co. So Peter at mydonut.co.
Amazing.
Oh, no way. So I just saw in the chat, our Dose of Positive writer is Kaylin Toussaint, and her looks like mom is in our webinar, which is really cool.
Oh, so great. Hey, Gretchen.
There.
That's so great. Daughter must have a lot of wonderful things to share at the dinner table.
All the positivity, hopefully.
All the positivity. Perfect. We've got your email there now. Thank you.
And I will also note, every single email response from the Donut newsletter comes directly to me. And the past couple of weeks have been a little hectic personally for me, but I try to respond to everyone within 24 hours, 48 hours at the most.
Quick. Yeah, and regarding the daily dose of positive, those could also spark a lot of really interesting discussions if you want to bring those to your students. Like the newsletter in general, like as you explore, has like space and STEM information and super random facts that I think kids would just absolutely love. So lots to check out.
Yeah, actually, Cynthia, on that point, just really quick, in the Parlay universe, hold on, in the donut collection, you scroll to the bottom, Where is it? Here we go. If you scroll to the bottom, there's the donut discussion template. So if you click on this, basically what it does is it links to today's donut newsletter. Now you might want to, if it's going to be a multiple day discussion, you of course might want to like link to the actual one in the archive, but basically it's learning goals. It links you directly to today's donut newsletter. So the latest is where you go, and then the kids can go here. And then there are discussion questions. What was something that surprised you, you found interesting? Select one particular story that you want to research more about. Which story is it? What interests you about it? What questions do you have about this topic? Do you know anything else that wasn't mentioned? So if the students choose to bring the positive story in, they can, of course, do that there. So this is just a general template that we use, or that we've provided as well, which may not be daily dose of discussion specific, but still brings the donut content into the classroom.
Yeah, and
so
one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry to jump in there. One thing to add as well, in top of our daily dose of positive, we have something called calling from the future. And the whole goal of calling from the future is, again, the antithesis to the impending doom of the news, to get folks excited about the future, right? And what's coming next. And for STEM teachers on the webinar right now, we've gotten some feedback, some outreach from teachers who have used these in the classroom as well. So positive, futuristic, and then more of like an English kind of social studies angle would be the dose of discussion.
Awesome.
All right, is the donut collection searchable by theme or content in the Parlay universe? So you can look it up by key terms, and then they should come up, but the donut collection itself will be on the front page of the universe. So it's quite easy to access there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's filtering by theme within that actual collection, but you can search the universe more generally.
Yeah.
To find, for example, Palestine, Israel, or schools reopening, or whatever it is. You can search those keywords in the universe, and you'll clearly be able to see which is donut, because it has the donut logo on the icon and it has the date on there as well. So it'll be visually obvious, but you can't at current filter the specific donut collection by those different themes. That's a good suggestion, though.
That is.
Mm-hmm. Is there like a Reddit thread kind of?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I have a quick question for you, Peter. I know that this newsletter is for everyone, and you were kind of surprised to hear the number of teachers that were using it initially. I recall you sending out like a survey being like, oh, this is really cool. Let's learn how you're using it. What was some of that feedback that you learned in that survey, or some of the feedback you learned from teachers about how they were using the newsletter?
Pretty much how we just went over for the past 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
A lot of it was based off of the dose of discussion, so very dose of discussion centric. We found a lot of English and social studies teachers. Mm-hmm. And then, as I mentioned, we switched to a new design a month or so ago, and that's been amazing, awesome. I'm very proud of it. And so their team has done an awesome job with it. And we've gotten since then some messages from teachers about, as I mentioned, daily dose of positive, and then futuristic as well, but similar to how y'all outlined it in the donut collection.
Gotcha. If you are heading out, thank you so much for taking the time today to learn about this partnership and meet Peter and Bobby. We're very excited here at the Parlay team. So this is really exciting to learn more about how this is going to work and how we can use it in classrooms. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This was awesome. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, PJ, for coming on. Really great. Looking forward to this. It's
awesome.
Gonna be an awesome year for sure.
Oh, definitely. And then I wouldn't be doing my job well if I didn't throw in one more shameless plug. Go check out our newsletter. It's on our website. You can sign up. I don't need to give you the prefix, but thedonut.co. So thedonut.co. Go sign up for the newsletter. And like I said, everything comes back to me. So reply to it. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you.